Hello, everyone. We're excited to have you here in the next event in our series that's here to support the Docker AI Machine Learning Hackathon. My name is Michael Irwin, and I'm part of the developer relations team here at Docker. And again, we're excited to have you here with us. If you're new to the series, again, this series is being put together to help support the Docker AI Machine Learning Hackathon. And we'll drop a link in chat here in just a moment. For those of you that are new to it and want to catch up or sign up and register for it, I will go ahead and say time's running out here pretty soon. So there's not much time left with the hackathon. But again, there's lots of great resources to get up and get going. And if you've got any projects that can help out in the AI machine learning space and especially help developers develop in this space, we'd love to see them. So feel free to still join, provide a submission, et cetera. There in the dev post site there, you'll also see a lot of additional resources, including links to docs and references, as well as our previous live streams that we've done as well too. I'm excited today to welcome Ishai, who's joining us from Lifecycle, and without much more there, I'll pass the baton off to him and let him take over. I will go ahead and say too, if you're joining us live, feel free to drop questions in chat, and we'll take them as they come in. So, Ishai, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, I'm super excited to be here today. I'm Ishai. Today I'm going to talk about in-flight collaboration using Lifecycle Docker extension. And I'm going to talk in general about how we can collaborate and share our Docker application, both locally and also in the cloud. I'm going to share going to the screen share so you can see my presentation here and the slides. I have a link in the slides for the repository that contain all the content for this workshop. We also have a Slack channel that you can reach us and reach me personally. And yeah, let's get started. So first of all, I want to say that I personally love hackathons. I think they are wonderful. It's a great tool to learn new technologies and get exposed to so many new tools and tricks and stuff that you can do. Over the years, I had the opportunity. I think my first hackathon was like maybe 14 years ago or something like that. I remember it was at PayPal, and it's really amazing the idea that in many hackathons you are trying new technologies that usually you don't necessarily have the justification to use them at your own work. Maybe I mean uh, they need to be like more mature, or you need to have like more knowledge about them. So for me, hackathons are all about experimentation, about learning new skills, trying new technologies, trying to build new projects from 0 to 1 in quick time. And the thing about hackathon that if you are working on a hackathon that is like this hackathon specifically have like a nice time limit, but in some cases you still work in a very short amount of time. You don't have the time for every processes or complex release processes. You need tight collaboration between developers, designers, product managers, or basically the whole hackathon squad or team. And to have efficient communication, you need to have high visibility on what you are developing on that are currently work in progress and the experience we are building, so we can have quick feedback loop and iterations, and of course that at the end we can easily showcase our work to the world. So again, I'm Ishai. I'm the CTO. Few words about myself. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Lifecycle. I'm a former tech lead and staff engineer. I worked a lot on open source project, cloud development, functional programming. I specifically love using Docker and Kubernetes. Um, the company I co-founded, Lifecycle, we are doing a lot with this question on how teams can increase their velocity and productivity. We are trying to build collaboration tools that bridge the gap between different stakeholders and allow better and more efficient review and communication process. And today I'm going to talk about some of the tools and techniques that we can use for working more efficiently on when we are developing a Docker application in our hackathon. I'm going to show our lifecycle extension. All these tools that I'm showing are free to use, and some of them are also completely open source. Um, so these are things that you can start using and try them yourself. Um, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is how we can share a running Docker application, and we can do it with the lifecycle extension. The lifecycle extension is a Docker for desktop extension that allows to share a Docker application with anyone and easily. It's based on we have an open source solution called Privy for dealing with ephemeral environment. It has a specific networking stack that we are using it. And we can use the extension to create both private and public URLs. I'm going to show the example. So let's open Docker. So that's the lifecycle extension. You can download it from the marketplace. You can see it here. Once you are using it for the first time, it will require you to create a user, an organization. And basically, I'm going to see in the Docker extension UI all my current Docker Compose applications that are running. And the idea that every application here I have a simple React Wordle application. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the game. And the idea is that I can, with one click, decide to share the application. I can choose whether I want private or public access. I'm going to touch it later, but for now, I'll create a public URL. And basically behind the scene, it's going to create a tunnel for that service. This Docker Compose application have a single service called frontend. And I'm going to get a public URL that I can use, share with everyone, and they can see the application. We have our lifecycle widget. I will touch it later. But basically, it's a running application. You can try to interact with it. That's the URL. It's a public URL. It's a persistent URL. So basically, every time I'm going to turn off and turn on the URL, if it's the same project, I will get the same URL, so you can share it safely. And basically, that's the basic functionality of the extension. I'm going to show an example more related to the theme of this hackathon. So I have the GenAI stack here, and I'm going to use Docker Compose app to run it. So for those of you who are less familiar, I know that it's been like with other hackathons as well, but the Docker GenAI stack is a suite of several services and AI tools. An example of a working chat application. It can talk with like a PDF. It can talk with some data that is lies inside a graph database. In that case, and I'm going to use Docker Compose app to run the application. Sorry, I will do Docker Compose -d. And basically, it's like an example for how to like a good boilerplate for running an application. Second, an AI ML application. Okay. So let's see that it's running properly. And the thing is that once it's running, I can see it here as well, because it's like a Docker Compose application. We can see all the services that are running here. And the same way that I share my React Wordle application, I can share the entire application here, all these services. So I'm going to run it, and this application, unlike the React world, will actually have like several components that talk with each other. So let's say it running, and we see that we got a URL for every one of these microservices. We can see that microservice of the front end, which is based, this kind of application is based on Vite and React, and I'm going to show cool things related to that. We have an API which we can access in the browser, but we can also access this URL in curl or any other tools. We have the loader, which is UI for loading application for loading data to the database for use like in embedding. And again, we have like the PDF bot that is designed to talk with the PDF. And basically all these kind of applications, we can access each one of them. Now, the thing about it that these URLs, I can share them with my team. And one thing that is cool is that all the functionality is preserved. For example, this kind of application is a Vite React application. I get a URL for that, and if I'm going to use the new Docker compose watch command, do it with no app because I already start running the application. So now the application is in watch mode, and if I'm going to change the code here, for example, I'm going to say I want to have like Docker AI hackathon. So what we are going to see here, let's see, we see that the UI like updated automatically without building the application, without refreshing the page. I can change it as well as here, and it will change automatically. And because all for this tunnel that is created is a HTTPS tunnel, but all the functionality in this case is like a WebSocket that's running in the Vite application that currently is running inside Docker. But using Docker Compose Watch, the files are transferred to the Vite React application. It updates the data, and the front-end application is sampling it with WebSocket, which work properly. We can see that the AI application that is currently calling the API server will work as well. We can see it both in with RAG mode and without RAG mode. The difference between them that in the RAG mode we are accessing the database that contain data related to the questions of specific here it's Neo4j. So you can see the difference between the answers. So here it's like one type of answer, but this one is actually based on the answer from Stack Overflow, so you can see the URL. So that's more related to the project itself, and like I mentioned, it presented in other talks. But here I wanted to talk about how we can update the application, share it, create a link, and allow anyone from the team access the application without dealing with publishing and releasing and pushing new images and all things related. Okay. So that's a bit about the lifecycle extension. Before I'm going to talk about a bit on how we can take this principle to other types of application. Are there any questions? Okay, I see that currently we're good. So the thing about sharing a web application is relatively more easy because we do have a web server that runs the application, and we can create a URL that running in proxying, and users can use it with their own browser. But how can we share a CLI application that we created in the hackathon? And for that, I'm going to use a tool called TTYD. I have here an example of an application called AutoGPT. Maybe some of you heard about it. And here we have like a CLI application. I'm going to show you how I can run it. Docker, usually I will use something like that, Docker compose run the CLI. And basically I will have this auto GPT application running. I can say plan an hackathon, and it should like create a subtask and it will talk with OpenAI for giving me the data. I pass it an OpenAI API key and all things related. But the thing is, what if I want to share this kind of application with other members of the team, and maybe some of them are not developers and don't know how to execute it or how to run it. So I'm going to show an example by creating another Docker Compose file called Docker Compose UI. I already created it. And here I'm going to use a tool called TTYD and add additional service. I'm going to copy this binary to a shared bin volume, and then I'm going to replace the entry point of the CLI. And that's the nice thing about Docker Compose. You can like patch every service and then several properties to it. So here I deleted the entry point, and for the sake of the example, I'll start with something very simple. I simply replace the entry point with the TTYD instead the Python entry point that the image already had. Image of the AutoGPT, we can see it here. So I replace the entry point and take both these files. We'll see something interesting. Oh. And I need to do that at the end. Okay. Okay. So right now I created this application. I'm going to share it like I shared the application of the GenAI stack. This time I'm going to do it private. I'll touch the difference between private and public afterwards. So we'll see that it's going to like it's running, it's initializing. Okay. Copying the URL before it's getting here, so it will be faster. Okay, so that's the URL I got for the application. And the thing is, it's just a terminal. So it's a terminal of the container, and it's running the web, so I can share it with everyone. And if I wanted to run the application, basically what I needed to do is like run the original entry point of the AutoGPT. It was here, so but so let's take it from here. Okay. And basically, I can use this command, and I'm going to go to AutoGPT here in the browser. Basically, it's run like a web terminal that runs the CLI, and this is more accessible. But assuming that I want to give like a better experience to the users, I can replace the command here, and instead of like running bash, I can say that my default command is like running AutoGPT. So if I'll run it again, I'll just run it so it will be less noisy. That's the same link, I just need to refresh. So you can see that I'm entering the UI of AutoGPT directly. So if I send it to a product manager or a developer, that doesn't know the command currently, or someone else that want to give feedback. So they can just use this link and try and interact with the application. So that's pretty nice. Again, I'll just let's say I want to plan an hackathon or plan a workshop. And again, we'll see that the application is working properly, because basically we just uh, turn our CLI application to a web application. That's the trick here. And the nice thing about it, if you'll notice, there are several techniques to accomplish it. But in this case, I didn't create, for example, I could create like an additional Docker file and copy and update the enter point. But using this technique, I can use a Docker file that, for example, is not in my control, is controlled by someone else. Now I could use a Docker file with a from, which also work, but if I don't need to do a build, it means that I can run it in an environment, for example, that build is not supported, or if I want to update it and without like doing additional build. So it's very nice, and in some cases I can even take several binaries from different images, like I took the image from TTOID and combine them in a single environment. So for example, in our tool preview, we have environment like that contained not just our CLI, but it also contains a Kubernetes cluster and kubectl, the client, and several other tools, and everything is like orchestrated in Compose. And it's also nice that in Compose we can choose which files or which layers we want to add. So here it's like a different Compose file. I'm going to leave it with my favorite option, which is a bit dirty in terms of like bash hacking, but basically it just means that my application will be something like that. Type AutoGPT to start. So I can use the same terminal and all the functionality of a terminal, but I can also just use the command AutoGPT, and it will just it puts like an alias for the Python command. So it's very nice. For example, I use a similar thing. I worked with like a TypeScript application that had like several enter point of CLI that deal with AI and chatbot, and it was very convenient. So I had like several aliases, and again, I can share it with everyone, and I can work on it and actively develop. And with Docker Compose Watch, all these changes are happening like in real time. So I'm developing inside the container, and the container is shared. Another thing that I wanted to show you is that I defined it as a private environment, and what it basically means is that if I'm going to enter in an incognito window, it will require me to log in to the environment, basically log into lifecycle. Um, you can see that I have a widget of lifecycle, so I can connect here and see like which are the members in my organization and invite other users. But I can also do it with the Docker extension. But the idea is that I can create environments only to specific users. So if we want something that is more secure. In addition, another tool that I can show that is interesting is that in some cases I got a link to an environment, and I ran the application and played with it a bit, and I saw some issues. And we have a developer tool, like we think about developers only in the browser or like in Docker, that I can click on here and basically get the information on the application like the logs of the application running live, the application, each service of the Docker Compose application. I can also like, this container is empty, but I can also like look at the environment variable, if there are environment variables or other properties. It looks like a bit slow, but here, for example, I can look at the environment variable. And this can be, it's for every application that we are sharing. So we have it also for the Gen AI stack. So the thing is that looking at these logs, inspection, and terminal does require you to be a member of the organization. I mean, it doesn't something that is open for everyone. It's not public because naturally there can be like sensitive data in logs or in network. But the idea is that if I got a link for an application and I want to look at the internal of the application or understand what's happening when I encountered some bug, I can do it with this UI that enable me to easily like debug the application, like similarly to when I'm doing like Docker logs or Docker exec or Docker inspect. So that's about the sharing a CLI application. I want to talk a bit about, I don't know if you notice here, but the Docker Compose I use here is actually using a build from a remote repository and actually even containing like a tag. So this technique is actually very useful because it means what's happening behind the scene that we are building this Compose project is going to clone this application in that specific revision. It could be like a tag, branch, commit, hash, every like GitRef. And basically it's going to build, like do the clone building, running the Docker file. And the interesting thing about it is that this kind of practice, it can be useful if you are using several repositories. For example, you have separation between front-end and back-end, and you want to check the front-end against a specific revision. So that's a very clean and fast way to do it. You don't need to deal with like cloning the repository and making sure, or maybe doing like a context switch if you already cloned it like in the past, and you can choose like every revision. It can work well with like a mono if you have a multi-repo or polyrepo. So you can have like a service from different repositories, from different branch to see how they interact together. And in this case, for example, I also use it because I'm working on a Apple Silicon device, and the images that published to AutoGPT were not supported by Apple Silicon. They were not like ARM64 images. So I can, instead of taking like the image, I can build it. And the nice thing about it is that when you're working on hackathon, like dealing with all the push and release of image version and uploading them to Docker Hub or to other registry require, I mean, dealing with more stuff. If it's automatic, it's required dealing with like CI stuff, and if it's like manually, you need to make sure that everyone work on the right version and that is consistent, and we have like images for the different architecture. So the idea here is that you can skip many of the processes related to releasing images that way. And again, this is like great for a development environment or a hackathon like setting. It can be useful for other kind of environment, but I mean, it's not like a solution for production. You wouldn't want your Kubernetes cluster that when you're having like a release that before that it will build the image directly from source, or instead of like maybe not Kubernetes cluster, but if you're using Docker Compose in production, so you wouldn't want to build the image and it in an image in a registry and all the things related to a proper release channel. But for like I said, for development, for checking different repositories with different versions, and for running locally, this it's great. It's worked really well. And you can also not just use like a branch here. You can also, if you have like a folder containing a service, so you can use something like that and look for a Docker file inside. So that's also a nice hack or tip that you can use with environment. Development tools I showed you. So these environments, the environments that I have that are local and are shared, quite nice. The one thing that I'm going to show here is that, I mean, these environments won't work once my computer is offline, right? I mean, that can make sense, or when my Docker Compose application is down. So I'm going to show another tool that is already installed once you install our Docker extension, which is Privy. It's a CLI for provisioning ephemeral environment. And it's also responsible for doing the networking stuff, so the Docker extension currently use it. And if I'll use the command, which is very similar to Docker Compose Privy app, with the same file Docker Compose YAML, Docker Compose UI YAML, and the difference is that I'm going to say like a driver. I want to use Lightsail. It's a AWS lightweight VM. And I'm basically going to take this application to the cloud. So I can use which driver I want. We support the tool support both AWS Lightsail instances. It supports Google VMs, Azure, and it can also work with a Kubernetes cluster. So when I'm clicking the Privy app here, so what is going behind the scene is going to create a new Docker host. As I mentioned, it could be like, in this case, it will be a VM on AWS, but it could be a pod on Kubernetes, a VM on Google, or other tools. It's going to snapshot the volume and the configuration of the Docker Compose configuration, so it will work properly. It's going to build the image, and at the end, it's going to use the same network solution to create a URL for the application. So you can see that I have another link right now for the application. And unlike the application we had before, this is running in the cloud. So if I'm going to tear down my original application, I'm going to do like Docker Compose done. I will do this to remove everything. So you can see that my original application is not going to work. There's no kernel. But this application is still up. Why? Because we basically did the same process, but only create a machine in the cloud. I can also use the same command privy down to remove it. I can also use privy ls to see all the environment. It should be driver Lightsail to see all the environment that I created, because this tool to create several environments. Okay, I'll check it. We'll see. I see that I have a problem here. So this tool is designed to have to run several environments concurrently. So the idea is that we can create an environment per branch or per commit or per whatever, per user. And like the environment that we created before, this environment also, I can look here at the lifecycle windows. I can see here all the environments that I've created. And while these environments are a local environment, I have this environment which is an environment that is running in the cloud. And like before, I can see the information. We can see the IP address. Basically, it's, as I mentioned, it's like a VM. We can see how much CPU, memory, disk it's using, the logs, terminal, and all this kind of data. And the thing about it, you saw how quick it was, because basically I created an environment from a local application that currently is running in the cloud. I didn't need to deal with like how do I expose traffic, how do I do SSL termination, how do like I create ingress or expose different services. Um, so it's like perfect for if you want to, you have an application, you want to share it with everyone without dealing with uh, the, the, um, the challenges of releasing an application for production. And usually in hackathon, I believe that could be that can be the common case because you are working on a hack. This environment can also be used not just for hackathons, but they can use for what is commonly known as a PR environment. So we started with a local development environment that we use Docker extension. We created a remote environment that is currently like running with Privy. We can use Privy in our CI job in GitHub Action or Circle CI to create what we call the PR environment. A PR environment is basically a ephemeral environment that of the live version of the application that is running as long as the pull request is open. And when the pull request is closed, the environment is down. And this is less for hackathon, it's more for creating like a good development pipeline, creating a pipeline that the application can be shared across all the software development lifecycle. So PR environment, if you are not using already, they are very good being like more productive and showing all your team members what are you working on or how the application look, or have like more efficient review. And if you're not set up, you don't have preview environment yet, you can check out this tool, Privy. So, Privy is an open source tool. It's driven like by community, or at least we are building the community for it. The community for now it's still small, but we are trying to make it for everyone and to have it like more feature rich. And I think that we are at the end of the workshop. I want to talk a bit about when the application. You notice that I have the small widget here that I can use to invite users, and I can look at the developer tools. So this is our initial offering for this kind of environment, but we believe that these tools should not be relevant only to developers. We want to offer tools for other stakeholders as well. So I want to show a bit about lifecycle. So the same model application that I showed at the start. And we can see the framing here that contain what we call the collaboration tool. Basically, this is our tool that we are offering for our managed platform, but we want to extract most of the tools to be like embedded in the Docker extension and Privy open source. We want to have like embedded tools that you can use for collaboration. Instead of here, it's like the tools are like the environment is embedded in the tools, not the other way around. It's a nuance, but it's like affect the experience. So what are these tools? They are tools for communication. I can use them for reviewing the app. For example, I can say a screenshot here and draw here and say these boxes should be larger, for example. Or I can say on this button that the background color here, we want it to be like a different background color. Let's say something like that. And we have like a before after image of the background image. of the button here. We can also like change and basically create like feedback that can be useful for the developers. Uh, Change the button size. All the team can be mentioned, react, um, have like reactions. I can also record like a video of the application working in progress, or something like what the experience look like. Here I have like an int. And the thing about like this video recording that everyone can like look at it, the team members, and they can also look at the developer tools. For example, the request that was sent for getting like the int. So we can see it recording the API. It provides like it's designed to be like a good way to give feedback to the developers from every stakeholder. And the nice thing about it is that it completely synced to your um, to the to the pull request if you are working with a pull request. So here you can see that I can see that all these comments that I mentioned here, including the video, the before after, the feedback. I can also like reply from him. I can resolve the comment, and it will resolve here. Um, I can have like a discussion here, and basically it's like a full system to discuss the product on top of the product. Um, so that's like the idea on how we can how we can create better communication process between other stakeholders that are not necessarily developers. I mean, the first thing is about like sharing the environment, making sure that we are talking about the same thing. So that's why we have all these tunneling and environment solution. But the other thing is how we can create a feedback that will arrive efficiently to developers, and these are the tools that we are working on, and we are hoping to embed in the Docker extension and Privy as well. Um, so currently, these tools for Privy and Docker extension are in private beta, or soon we'll enter a private beta, but you can join our Slack community to get early access. And we have a channel for it. Um, that's it. I'll be happy to take some questions. Um, and also, like I mentioned, these are all the resources that are relevant. And I'll share the URL. That's the URL of the main repository of this workshop. So you can see also the example I show you with the CLI and the GenAI stack, and also the slides are here in Markdown, or you can just run it and see the slide as they are. Okay, so I'll just stop the screen sharing. Thank you very much, first of all.
Yeah.
Hope you
And
all enjoyed.
yeah, and a fantastic presentation. Personally, I love, just as much as maybe just much, maybe more. I don't know. I can tell that you love Compose a lot too, and so it's always fun to see folks using Compose and building on top of it and additional tools and capabilities and everything. So, first off, kudos to you. Great presentation, and thank you for helping us all learn a little bit about more about lifecycle as well. Um, there weren't a lot of questions that came in. There was one question that came in, and Gabrielle asked, "Does lifecycle work with native mobile apps versus web apps being displayed on mobile devices?" So I'll let you talk about that for a
Yeah,
moment.
certainly. So basically in Lifecycle, we have a web apps, and we have a way to like do responsive sizing. I didn't show it, but we have like the button that changed the UI. We don't have support for native mobile apps, but I think that's the, I mean, it requires further experimentation, but basically today you can run, for example, if you are working on an Android application, you can run an in Docker Compose and load the application directly and stream the video using WebRTC. And they're actually ready. There are images that already implement that. I think there are some that are available by Google, I believe they are using it in one of their platform. So I haven't personally tried it, but I think um, it can work. I'm not sure in terms of like performance, but the thing is, when we have like maybe a better like solution in the cloud that are based on ARM, and we have like a good emulation of GPU that will work also with Docker, and the latency is also good if it's like close to the users. So maybe it could be like a nice way of interacting with the application for an emulator. And I believe if you can get the like 90% of the experience of the application, it should be enough for giving feedback for sharing application. I mean, think about it. That is like at least 10 times faster than download an application, publishing using a tool like TestFlight. So yeah, I believe that in the future we'll have a better story for that, and it probably will be based on the tooling that Docker offer.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I think there's still a lot that can be done to help out with the native mobile app space. But as you said too, that the tooling there is growing and evolving and changing so rapidly these days as well too. So who knows? I'll admit I haven't played with an Android emulator out of out of a container before. I may have to try that one out. So today I learned.
Yeah, I can send you the link. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, Beyond that, I think that was the scan through chat again. We see several hellos from folks in Egypt and Francesco joining us as well too. So again, thanks everybody for tuning in and saying hello and pass along comments as well too. So um, I'll give one more chance for any other questions as we're kind of just wrapping up here a little bit. But I'll admit it was kind of fun to see you taking your applications and exposing them out and whatnot. And I'll admit I took the URL. I was like, I'm going to capture that, and I open up my browser. I'm like, I probably shouldn't be doing submitting these questions. The last thing I want to do is start consuming a lot of your CPU cycles while you're doing a live stream here. So, but yeah, I at least pulled it up in the browser and said, "Yep, it's working." And yeah, all the tunneling, everything is it's magical. It just worked there. So, but again, try not to consume too much of your machine there. But really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
and so as we're wrapping up here, even Trevor sends a shout out. He said, "I'm excited to try out an emulator and in a container as well." But also, thanks for the great presentation as well. So, um,
Thank you.
so Ishai, as we're wrapping up here, any final words of wisdom, any final advice that you give to folks that are working on the hackathon at this point?
Basically, have fun. I mean, it's amazing, and yeah, I truly love Compose. It's a great tool, and it's so simple and clean. So there are good reasons to use this format. I mean, I know there are other formats that are more powerful, but this is very dev centric and provide like a great dev and local experience for production. Bring the heavy guns. So, you know.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for sharing the things that you're passionate about, the things that you're working on, et cetera. And we'll put the links in the description as well to the extensions and sample repos and whatnot that were shared earlier as well. Again, feel free if you're joining us, join us on the hackathon at DevPost. Again, there's links to all the different resources and all of our previous live stream events as well. There's also a link to our community Slack workspace as well. So if you've got questions or you need help, or again, maybe you're still thinking of ideas or things that you want to work on, feel free to drop in there. There's a AI machine learning hackathon channel there. Next up on Monday, we're going to have a final kind of just wrap up how to submit your session or submit your submission. There we go. Words will come to me, and kind of close things out. So again, everybody have a great weekend and keep having fun. Thanks all.